laws of morality, laws of logic, and laws of science, which are different types of laws, and how these are all these laws are assumed by everybody when they conduct themselves or in God's world, basically, but they live as if these laws are universal. For example, somebody will say, it was wrong to own slaves in the 1600s, as if there's some universal moral code that applies through history, and cross-culturally, as if everybody, everywhere, at all times ought to adhere to certain conducts. But when you challenge them on why is this the case, or how do they know this is the case, two different problems, they don't have an answer in their worldview. As Christians, we can say, well, there's a omnipresent, omniscient, transcendent, eternal God who imposes these laws on His creation, His creatures, and put His law in our hearts through our conscience. And this is where the understanding of right and wrong come from. But if you reject the Christian God, then you have no basis to say, well, this is wrong, or this is unjust, or this is unfair, because it would really just be a matter of your personal preference. So if you don't personally like the murder of children, and doesn't mean that it's wrong, you'd have to appeal to some objective standard outside of your own personal preference. And so when people try to argue this way and say, well, it's unjust, there's injustices in the world, and so somehow this is a testimony against God, and when the Bible, of course, also teaches us of the doctrine of sin, that sin is in the world, people are sinners, people do wicked things, and so this is the Christian explanation of why there is evil in the world. But if you reject the Christian doctrine, what is your answer? Where does evil come from? You can't explain the existence of evil to where it's objectively binding to somebody's conscience if you don't accept that God has created us in His image and imposes these laws upon us and put the work of the law in our hearts. So this is something that you can use when somebody attacks the Bible and says, "Oh, there's these things that are evil that that Christians have done, or that people of God have done in the past." Well, where do you get your idea of evil from? So you want to cast that back up on them and make them realize that unless God exists, there is no objective concept of good and evil. It depends upon the unchanging character of God. So because God doesn't change, His immutability, and because God is just and He's holy and He's righteous and He's compassionate and He's merciful and He doesn't change, that's the foundation of morality. That's the foundation of right and wrong. But if you reject that, then you have no objective foundation. It's just your personal preference, what you like or what you don't like. And you can't expect, unless you are pretending like you're God, that because you don't like enslaving children in the 1500s, that therefore they should not have done that, and somehow that was wrong. So people that hate God end up pretending to be God, or acting as if they are God. So anyway, just be aware of this, that the Christian foundation of morality comes from the nature of the living God.